Welcome back to the channel. Today it is obviously going to be another score predictions video. It is match day 16, the last weekend before the next international break comes. It sucks, but it means I've got to start making my next Staxers video. That'll be coming around next week, I think. Last weekend there was a lot of drama, but this weekend there are some really tasty fixtures to delve into today. If you like what you see and you want to continue seeing championship content, please make sure you give the video a like, share it to your friends, and subscribe for regular championship content. All of that will be fantastically appreciated. You know the purpose of this video. This is a chance for you to get a shout out on the channel. We had our first shout out on Monday. I'm hopeful that we're going to get another one this weekend. What you do, you pause the video. I'm going to leave all the games in the description down below. You can make as many predictions as you like, but obviously the more predictions you make, the more likely you'll get one right. Keep that in mind. Also, in the future, in shouting now, I didn't make it clear how I was going to shout the channel out. What I'll do is I'll put your comment on screen. If multiple people get correct predictions, I'm going to put all the comments in one screen. And in terms of sharing the channel, it's whoever gets the most predictions correct. If there's a tie, then I'll just do it randomly. And I think if multiple people do leave their predictions and get them right, I'll also put the links to all of your channels in the description down below. I hope this is a fair way for me to get everyone recognised. But anyway, I need to up my game. I didn't get any right last weekend. I am desperate to try and get some correct predictions this weekend. But enough of me talking, let's hop into some of these games. What a better way to start off this championship weekend with an East Midlands derby, Nottingham Forest versus Derby. Now, I actually hope that none of these sides get promoted anytime soon, more or less on Nottingham Forest, because this is such an entertaining derby and we're really lucky to have it in the championship for sure. These sides have actually met already in the Carabao Cup. Forest got a very convincing 3-0 home victory against Derby. It was a terrific performance and it was the beginning of their terrific run in the championship. Derby were poor on that night. They didn't have a shot on target in that whole entire game. They'd be hoping that they could do a much better job this weekend. Derby have actually not been able to beat Nottingham Forest since 2017. So Forest have had a pretty strong form against Derby in recent years. And that does reflect on their league positions as well. With Forest, they got back to winning ways, beating Luton Town by 2-1. A game where I felt like it should have been more convincing than it was. Luton had a very late comeback. Forest ultimately held on in the end. Derby had a really good win against Middlesbrough. They're not their best performance. In fact, neither performance has really amazed me so far. But so far, they are improving. They got a clean sheet. Hopefully they can take some of that defensive resilience against Forest. Because defensively, I think Derby have been alright. I've been more of a concern of their midfield and how much they can supply with their strikers. When you get these sort of derbies, form almost tends to be thrown out the window in this game because anything can happen in this game. I do think the home side do have an edge in this game. In terms of their form, their momentum, I think ultimately they have better quality in the midfield and attack as well. They can switch their play, they can be defensive, but they can also play on the counter-attack as well. I'm going to say Forest get a 2-0 home victory, but I think it'll be really, really feisty. Let me know what you think in the comments. One game that has really caught my eye this weekend is Preston North End versus Huddersfield Town. Two sides in very strong runs of form at the moment. Huddersfield undefeated in 7 games, I believe now. The County brothers have had such a positive effect on them. Preston arguably probably had their most important win so far this season, grabbing an away victory against Charlton. A game where they weren't miles better than Charlton, but when they got their one goal, they made sure Charlton didn't score another. And you've got to be desperate in those kind of situations if you want to get promoted as a side. The reason why I think this is exciting, as I said, Huddersfield have been unbeaten for so long now. And Preston at home are undefeated as well. So I can anticipate being this a real close game actually. Funny stat for you, in their last 6 meetings, neither of these sides have actually drawn a game. There have been plenty of goals in this game. Preston actually have the stronger record against Huddersfield Town, home and away. I do think, however, there are fragilities with Preston. Sometimes defensively they can switch off. They probably still won't have Daniel Johnson in their team. It was a bit of a blow that he had to go off pretty early against Charlton. With Huddersfield, they're just getting better and better as each game goes on. I think the addition of Danny Simpson actually has really helped Huddersfield defensively. I think that's quite an underrated signing in my opinion. I'll be interested to see if Carlton Grant has another good game. In terms of predicting this game, it's close. I don't think Preston will lose, so I think they'll still remain unbeaten at home. But I can see Huddersfield, they just have such a good resilience. They just don't want to lose any more games. And I don't think they'll lose. I think this will be a 2-2 draw and a very, very entertaining game indeed. A showstopper. In fact, I can see a lot of drama in this game. I hope this is the game and not a 0-0 draw. So, Preston 2, Huddersfield 2. Let me know what you think of that in the comments. So the next game is Queen's Park Rangers versus Middlesbrough. Both teams not in very strong form at the moment. With Queen's Park Rangers, they've lost 2 games in a row now, both by 2-goal margins against Brentford and Leeds respectively. Middlesbrough overall have, I don't know what's going on with Middlesbrough. They're really, really struggling to get a grip into Jonathan Woodgate. With Queen's Park Rangers at home though, I think they'll be okay. Although what I am surprised is that Queen's Park Rangers have still not had a clean sheet so far this season. So defensively, Queen's Park Rangers need to address issues and they need to address them as soon as they can. With Middlesbrough, they're really struggling to score goals. So if anything, if Queen's Park Rangers have a chance to keep a clean sheet, this would be the game that they have to try and keep a clean sheet for. In terms of head-to-head records, Middlesbrough actually have a very strong record. Maybe they can use that form to try and grab something from this game. However, I think this is a bit different so far. Middlesbrough just do not seem the same. I think without Randolph in goal as well, despite how good Pierce has done between the sticks, I think defensively, they've just not been the same. In the midfield, they can barely string a few passes together, and they've just not been able to be very clinical. And I think that's going to be a real issue. I think Queen's Park Rangers will win quite comfortably by 3-1. And I'd say if Middlesbrough don't get at least a point in this game, then I'd say Jonathan Woodgate will be in a very precarious position and potentially sacked during this international break, but I hope not. Next up is Reading versus Luton. Both teams in contrasting forms in this current period. Reading, under Mark Bowen, have kind of rejuvenated themselves. It's a bit of a miracle work of what Mark Bowen has done. I don't know what he's done, but he's put a really positive effect for Reading. They're playing like their old selves again at the start of the season. With Luton, they've just been Luton, really inconsistent. I thought Reading had a terrific performance against Millwall, who obviously had a lot of momentum themselves, beating Stoke very comfortably. But the likes of Ajaria and Swift in the midfield were just completely tearing them apart. With Luton, they really struggled to get going. In fact, I think with every game, excluding Barnsley, they've struggled to get going in all of their games so far. But if they can start well and get maybe a goal and maybe sit back for a little bit, Luton could actually win some games. But so far, it's been their defence that's been the problem. I have no problem with their attack. I think they can score plenty of goals. And McManaman's goal against Nottingham Forest, by the way, was brilliant. Along with Sam Baldock's goal against Millwall. Both of the teams have had players scoring terrific goals last weekend. In terms of head-to-head, they've not played since 2008. Reading have a very, very strong record. I think that will show in this game. I think Reading, with their new form, they are playing really, really well at the moment. This could be the game that could be a potential banana skin, but for me, I think Reading are professional enough and they'll get a 2-1 home victory against a lacklustre Luton side, who in my opinion, they need to win more at home if they want to survive this season. I think they need to get this game out the way, fix a few things during this international break and go again. If I'm going to put a quick poll, who's more likely to survive, Luton Town or Middlesbrough? Let me know in the comments down below. Next up, we have Sheffield Wednesday versus Swansea. Both teams having varying results last weekend. Sheffield Wednesday lost against Blackburn away. A game where I think they were really, really poor. I don't think they really tested Walton in goal all that much until Jacob Murphy managed to score in the 83rd minute, I think. But apart from that, they were the second best team because Blackburn, I'd say, was slightly better. The reason that they weren't just destroyed is that Blackburn had a lack of quality in the final third until the final 5 minutes of the game. With Swansea, they continue their impressive away form with a 2-1 away victory against Wigan. A game where they weren't really convincing, but they still managed to grind out a result, which I think is really important for a promotion envy side. This could be a top of the table clash. Any team that wins this game could really put themselves in a good position in the playoffs, or maybe even the automatics. I think Swansea more or less need this win more if they want to try and push for the likes of Preston, West Brom and Leeds at the top of the table at the moment. Sheffield Wednesday, if they can get a win, they could slow Swansea down, but they can also make up some ground and go back into the playoffs. Swansea have a better record and their away record is really, really good as well. However, I think Sheffield Wednesday do have a good quality at home. I know they're winless in 2, but I think this game will be a 1-1 draw. I think that's the safest bet. I think both teams have got really good qualities and good attributes about them. So I think they'll cancel each other out and get a 1-1 draw. But I think this will be really, really close. Next up is Wigan versus Brentford. And I've really struggled to predict this game. I think I've written about 3 or 4 different predictions just for this game alone. I've eventually made up my mind, which I'm going to tell you in a minute. But Wigan at home against Swansea, I know they lost, but they had a terrific performance, I thought. And I thought they were very hard done by not to get at least a point in that game. With Brentford, they had a home defeat against Huddersfield Town, which completely threw their great form out the window. It was a banana skin game, and Huddersfield took their better than Brentford did with their good form. They've got to really try and turn the corner in this game. If they could get a win against Wigan, I'd say Brentford could go on to some serious business after this international break. Last time they played each other against the DW, it was a 0-0 draw, and I do think this will be, once again, a low-scoring game. I mean, Wigan so far, they've not looked really, really clinical. The likes of Jamal Lowe struggling to settle, in my honest opinion. He has got qualities. He did hit the post against Swansea. He was unlucky that didn't go in. Keeper Moore has finally got the mark, scoring his first goal for Wigan against Swansea last weekend, and should have probably scored more with the amount of chances he did have. With Brentford, I think they were unlucky not to get at least a draw against Huddersfield. They had many chances, but Huddersfield had a very compact defence, which is why they ultimately didn't win in this game, and they got caught out on the counter. Going with a theme with not many goals in this game, I'm going to edge Brentford with a 1-0 away victory. But I think Wigan will pose a really big fight, and I think this will be a really, really feisty game, in my opinion. So 1-0 Brentford, it'll be really, really close, that's for sure. Another eye-catching game is at the bottom of the table. Barnsley versus Stoke. 23rd against 24th. This, I think, is going to be one of the games of the weekend. And for me, Barnsley, it's a must-win game for them. Barnsley have shown they do have quality. They do have attacking threat. They managed to score 2 against Bristol City and had a fantastic mentality, going 2-0 down but gaining into 2-2. With Stoke, they were poor as anything against West Brom. They really didn't have an edge of them at home at all. The fans didn't like it as well. Jens Keller looks to be the favourite to replace Daniel Stendel as manager. To be fair, I don't know much about him. I know he's managed pretty prestigious teams in Bundesliga, for instance Schalke and Stuttgart. But he's also managed Union Berlin and Ingolstadt more recently. Would he be the right decision? I mean, he's continuing the German theme, but if he's going to be better than Daniel Stendel, I'm not too sure. For me, Barnsley are due a win, and I think this will be the game where they get that win. I think it will be a 1-0 home victory for Barnsley. For me, they excite me more when they play football. My only concern is defensively, but so far, Stoke attacking-wise have looked really, really stale. And for me, I think the young players they do have will be able to deal with it. So for me, Barnsley will get their second win of the season and get a 1-0 home victory against Stoke. So next up is Birmingham versus Fulham. Both sides experienced a defeat last weekend, with Birmingham being part of a 4-2 loss against Cardiff, which was a very entertaining game, which saw them go down to 9 men. Then we had Fulham, who had a home defeat against Hull, and not just like a narrow defeat, they were blown out the park 3-0. It was a really poor day for Fulham, and I think this game will ultimately answer a few questions if Scott Parker is getting the best out of his Fulham players. One of the more talented sides in the Championship in terms of players. They, I think, have the most passes in the Championship. I think I've seen that stat recently. Birmingham, though, they can pull off a surprise here and there. They tend to be quite an inconsistent side. When they lose, they win next game, but when they win, they lose next game. At home as well, I think Birmingham are really, really strong in my eyes. With Fulham away from home, they can grind out a good result, but defensively, I think they're still really, really fragile. The game will be decided whether their front three showed up. They really didn't get Hull. They really, really struggled to string a few passes together in the midfield, and Hull were running all over them. It was almost embarrassing at times. Birmingham actually have a really strong head-to-head against Fulham. They've won 4 of their last 6 meetings. I'm going to make that 5. I think Birmingham will get a 2-1 home victory against Fulham. I think Birmingham at home have just got a little bit more of an edge. I think they just have a better ability of being able to grind out results. They can play to their style a lot better than Fulham can play to theirs at the moment in my eyes. I think with Fulham, I think if they take this defeat on the chin, Scott Parker will have plenty of time to try and sort things out in the next international break. But if this continues after the international break, I think Scott Parker will be under some tremendous pressure. Another really exciting game this weekend is Hull versus West Brom. Hull are the team in form at the moment. 3 wins out of 3, 2 away wins against Forest and Fulham respectively. They are on fire at the moment. West Brom, obviously they're on fire. They are the current leaders of the championship. They look really comfortable compared to all the other championship teams. It seems Slaven Bilic can get West Brom to play in a way that they never look like they're going to lose a game. They have only lost 1 game, which was against Leeds, although to be fair, they probably should have equalised against that Leeds in that game as well. But West Brom look really strong. They already look so fluid as a side. Their midfield with Romain Sawyers, Dean Garner, Pereira, Charlie Austin to an extent, even though he's not scored many, he's been a real threat for defenders. I think their defence as well with Ajay, he's done well. Johnston's been doing well as well. That whole squad just seems so complete. It feels ready that it can take anyone on, and I can already see West Brom being one of the favourites to get promoted. With Hull, with their best form under Grant McCann as well, if they can beat West Brom, it will automatically open the doors for the other sides below West Brom to try and overtake them in the top of the championship. And also if they win, they will almost be in touching distance for playoffs. And what a recovery that would be from Hull. Although West Brom do have a really strong record against Hull. However, at the Cape Hull didn't manage to beat West Brom last year. So I would say they do have a chance. I think following their form, I think this will be a 1-1 draw. If there were to be another result, I'd say West Brom would win. I think away from home, they do have a lot of strength. You saw that against Stoke. But Hull are really, really different in terms of quality. They've got Bowen, they've got Grzycki, they've got Stewart, they've got Tom Eaves, who had a fantastic game against Fulham last week. And I think overall, they'll cancel each other out, and I think 1-1 will be the safest result. What do you think? The next game this weekend is Leeds versus Blackburn. Leeds managed to end their run of only managing to score 1 goal at home. They scored 2 against Queen's Park Rangers. Already showing a little bit of progress, and I think the introduction to Tyler Roberts actually really changed the dynamic of the game. And I was surprised Marcelo Bielsa didn't do this sooner, to kind of get 2 up front and not to have Bamford completely isolated. Because for me, he's a good footballer, but he's not physical enough to really pose a big threat to defenders. It seems he can be pretty bullied by the defenders a lot of the time, hence why he can't really score many goals. If he were to have a Diego Costa mentality, Patrick Bamford I think could be unplayable, but he really doesn't have that mentality in my eyes. With Blackburn, they had a fantastic win against Sheffield Wednesday. Previously, in a really poor run of form, they'd be hoping they can continue that momentum, but I think they're playing against Leeds at completely the wrong time in my eyes. I think with Leeds, they're just outside the automatic promotion places. They'll be keen to end on a high. And I think the fact they did have a good win against Queen's Park Rangers, my fear for Leeds was that they're going to tire out after every international break. They do show they still have it within them. I do think Leeds do have the capability in winning this game. Whether Kiko Casilla will be playing it, we'll see. I think he could get a ban for quite some time. I think he said something he shouldn't, I believe, against Sheffield Wednesday. But I don't see many goals in this game, despite this game last year being a 3-2 home victory to Leeds. I see this being a 1-0 home victory to Leeds. I think defensively Leeds have been a lot stronger than last year. Ben White has been a revelation to that back line. And I think in terms of attacking wise, they'll still be a bit quiet, but eventually, with their many chances, one of them will go through the net and get past Walton. So I think this will be a 1-0 home victory to Leeds, but a really, really close game. The penultimate game this weekend is Millwall versus Charlton. Really interesting game. I think this will be really, really close. With Millwall, they had a disappointing defeat against Reading. They struggled to get going in the first half. I think in the second half they were a lot more improved, but they really couldn't control Reading. Reading were just completely running over them in the midfield. Charlton, they had a home defeat against Preston, a game where they did have chances, but I don't think Charlton looked their normal selves. They didn't look as ruthless as they have done in previous games, but I think away from home, they really have a good record, especially against the top sides actually. But they've got to be really careful against Millwall because I don't consider them to be a top side yet. A crazy stat for you, Charlton have not beaten Millwall in their last 6 meetings. So Millwall do have a really strong record against this side. Millwall do have a lot of players. I think Bill Kowski in goal has really, really helped Millwall so far in terms of their defence. I think Jed Wallace is a really, really key player for them. Tom Bradshaw as well is continuing to do well for Millwall as well. But Charlton, obviously, they've got players of their own. But Cordy Bond had a bit of a quiet game against Preston, but you can't deny he's really, really good in quality. Conor Gallagher is just an absolute handful. Every time I see him play, he looks on another level, and I really hope actually he gets a little bit of game time with Chelsea next year at this rate. In terms of predicting this game, it's tight. I did originally have a Charlton win, but not knowing that they've not beaten Millwall in 6, I'm not going to quite edge Charlton, but I will think that this will be a 2-2 draw. I think both sides will go for this game. I think Gary Rowett has got a different mentality inserted into Millwall fan Neil Harris did. However, I think Charlton will fight hard and they'll get a hard-earned point out of it. So a really entertaining game, I think. Now, Cardiff are playing Bristol City now. Bristol City admin, are you sure it's a Saturday? I mean, it could be a Saturday game. I mean, Cardiff Bristol City doesn't sound like a live game, does it? The Bristol City admin had a mare. They are playing on Sunday. I think this would be actually a really close game. Cardiff at home are still undefeated. Bristol City are not in their strongest run. I don't think they would have wanted to play Cardiff following their really strong home record. Cardiff also have a really strong record against their opponents as well, winning 4 times out of the 6 times last 6 games they played against each other. Bristol City have only beaten Cardiff once in their last 6 meetings, which was 2017, when Cardiff went on to get promoted at the end of that season. Ultimately, what really was disappointing for Bristol City against Barnsley was their mentality. They were 2-0 up, but they allowed Barnsley to get back into the game, and defensively, they were really sleepy in terms of both of Barnsley's goals. With Cardiff, they had a 4-2 victory against Birmingham, a game where they really struggled to get going. Eventually, somehow, they managed to be ahead at half-time, and then Warnock changed a few things and they were much improved in the second half. They'll probably help that Birmingham were down to 9 men in the end, but it was a really entertaining game regardless. I don't think this game will be as entertaining. I don't think there'll be as many goals. I think the safe option for this will be a 1-1 draw. I don't think Bristol City will lose this game. I do think they have enough in them to stop Cardiff in their tracks, because I don't think Cardiff are playing as well as they could right now. But I think Cardiff, being at home, they've not lost. They will not allow Bristol City to run all over them. I think with their set pieces as well, they'll attack Bristol City that way. And I think they'll earn a draw out of it. So for Sunday's game, I think this will be a 1-1 draw. But there you have it, guys. Here are my predictions for match day 16 of the Championship on the screen right now. Do you agree with me? Let me know in the comments down below. Let me know of your thoughts coming into this weekend's games. How confident do you feel your team right now? Let me know in the comments down below. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, my Twitter's right there. It's also in the description down below. You can always follow me and ask me any question. I'm on Twitter a lot more now. I'm hoping to use it to talk to you guys a little bit more. But I can't wait for this weekend's Championship games. But here's how the current table looks before this weekend's games. The Championship this season seems really open, so I'm really excited to see what happens. But that'll wrap it up. If you guys liked what you see, please make sure you do give this video a like and a share. It will all be tremendously appreciated. If you want to see more Championship content, make sure you do subscribe to the channel. Hopefully we'll see more correct predictions this weekend, and we'll have another addition from James Kelday to our current Lexus Hall of Fame. But that will wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you saw the end of this video. And as always, to conclude a really exciting weekend of Championship football, take care.